Alright, sweet. So, I'll talk about pushes first, then holds, then going into mid-fights last, because there's been a bit of changes that I kind of wanted a theory craft about. But, for a standard hold, or, sorry, for a standard push, most of it's going to look something along the lines of you walking over towards the left side, or you being on the right side, depending on where these people are standing. Most of the time, during a push, people are already occupying a couple of spaces. That's when you can occupy maybe ramp, maybe you go all the way through secret, going over to crates. There's a couple ideas there, but I just want to go into the idea of what you need to do before the push even happens. Number one, you gotta make sure that you're calling out what you're doing, or your team understands what you're gonna be doing. Most of the time, you're gonna be sitting over here by shutter waiting for something to happen. If you're not required for a push, let's just say they take an Uber exchange, stand over here if they're going out shutter, or play by shutter if they're going off bats. The reason being, you don't want to take the flash away from the Uber, and it's just a better Uber for your team than if you had a flash to begin with. Because if you stand right between your scout and your demo, there's just that likelihood that you might fuck it up. as bad as it is to say in that way. But you also have another goal. Before the push even happens, you're watching shutter for any person trying to walk in, and there is always that synergy between you and your sniper. You open for your sniper shoots, and that's when you go ahead and try peeking with your sniper. Now, one thing I don't want you to do is kind of peek this willy-nilly. This is a bad habit that I do all the time. But this just gets you killed a sniper, especially if you don't have any sort of play with your sniper in mind. If you're kind of just doing this to clear stickies, or even if you're just seeing what's happening. If there's at least one chance for that sniper to get you, assume that he's going to land the shot. If he doesn't peek the point, like if he's going over looking at bats, for example, on the point, maybe you could shoot him, but nothing's going to stop him from just turning his head and shooting you. So you're very much incentivized not to do that unless that sniper is dead. In which case, now it would be more of an idea for you to peek out and take space away from them, maybe going over to ramp, maybe going over towards the left side of point, but more importantly, making sure that you're also using this wall in case anything doesn't go well. If you're sitting over here by death wall, you're watching your team walk in, and then you can go ahead and either play toxic or play a bit more aggressive on the point, or playing it a bit wider so you could deal with the people on point but not peek shutter. I found this to be really good against snipers because snipers might go ahead and peek and shutter, maybe they go over to bats, and that's when you start peeking over on the left side, and that's when it becomes really, really, really powerful. But we'll talk about this in a bit. Most of the time when you're peeking out a shutter, like I said, you're just playing with your sniper. Maybe there's no snipers in play, assumingly so, and you and your demo are able to peek this. Or you just find the opportunity to peek this by yourself, maybe because the sniper's dead, or the demo's dead, or there's just a whole bunch of people dead, or they're passive, so you're just able to walk in for free. Keep notes of that. Keep notes on when other people are standing on the point or standing on their side of ramp, maybe there's shutter, and that's when you can go ahead and kind of gauge whether or not you're going to peek the angle, because if they're sitting in shutter, they're waiting for you. And we'll talk more about it, but the idea is you don't want to peek it like this. You're looking directly at where they're looking. And assumingly so, a sniper's going to stand there, you're going to be a target, you die, then your team pushes, and then they can just walk back. So, you kind of need to bait a little bit if you're playing in shutter. Or, if you're playing on ramp, that's when you can go ahead and start leading some of these calls. You have direct information that's not conflicting with what your team needs to do. You have a lot of space looking at their ramp, looking towards toxic, looking at shutter, and of course looking at fans, secret if you have shadows on, and under a little bit. I've seen a lot of people go by here, and if you have the shadows enabled over here, you know they're by your side. If you have the shadows enabled over here, you could see them on their side. Be careful. If there's a heavy sitting on this wall, and he's directly by the crates, he's not hidden. You can see him, people on under can try and poke at him, prod at him. I don't like sitting in this spot exactly, and I'm assuming that most heavies are going to do this. They're going to peek it wide, and then slowly come over to crates, because that's when the shadow doesn't appear, and that's when it becomes truly unpredictable, unless somebody's on bats watching this heavy. But most of the general ideas of pushing, when it comes to this, preparation and execution, and what information you have to make that execution work. So a little bit lopsided order, but you get what I mean. Preparation, or getting information, preparation, and walking forward. In this case, shutter, in most cases, is a very passive way of pushing. I personally used to do this a whole bunch, and I just struggled. You can't peek because every single angle is looking at you. You can't do much except shoot the people in front, but when they're behind shooting at you, you can't really do much. You need to wait for people on bats or ramp to start peeking for you in order for you to even have a chance at peeking them. You need some sort of opportunity, at the very least, playing with your sniper, to get something going. And that's why I'm urging you and your sniper just make the most of this. You are still protecting him, you are great at protecting him, and you also simultaneously watch shutter with your team. And the reason why I want to say that is because you and your sniper can do a whole lot. If you have information on people on point, your sniper can then sit in shutter in an unpredictable spot. You open the shutter, he kills the med, he kills the sniper, he kills the demo. He goes all the way back over to bats, where he makes the rotate over to ramp, maybe with his flank, like NG, soldier, stuff like that. Or he could just keep on sitting shutter because you're there. And that's the only real way that I can see you making progress playing by shutter, is helping your sniper force mistakes and get those opportunities. Create those opportunities for your team. But with other classes, even classes like the demo, you both get spammed out. With the sniper, at the very least, he doesn't need to sit all the way in front of the shutter. If he does, then he's exposed to all of this, but you opening the shutter enables your sniper to play a bit back. However, this also enables spies sitting in these corners all the way over here. That's when they can start getting stabs on you, so please be aware of that. Also, just be aware of this decloak, because this is fucking stupid. Where the fucking spy could just go in like that. Maybe he goes behind toxic. I've seen this done a lot. Sometimes they'll decloak over here. Maybe they might try to go directly into the shutter. Maybe they might feint as a player before going for somebody. I don't really want to talk about it because usually you should just be able to see it. And another thing too, when you are pushing shutter, you need to make sure that you're aware of the people on barrel, people in secret, just a whole bunch of different angles you need to look for. Unless you're playing with people and you have the information prior, I don't suggest you play or not play. Playing over here means that nobody's able to get in without being called. That's an important role that you do the best, because you are somebody who's just doing a whole bunch of damage. When they're getting up close, they're walking towards you, you're walking towards them, maybe they're playing by shutter, and you peek it to help your team. That's another situation. But that's on them, right? Assuming that they're playing stock standard ways of play. Like their demos watching shutter, maybe their heavy plays on crates a little bit, but backs up because he knows that a push is coming, and then the team just revolves around shutter waiting for you to peek and push. This is when these situations don't really pop up. But there is something to say, if they're playing up close by your shutter, that's when you can become more of a threat because you isolate these fights immediately. You're already fully revved, you're already healed because you should be getting 450s, you shouldn't be taking damage, so it's going to keep on being 450. And then anybody who peeks the shutter gets instantly killed, or you do a whole bunch of damage to them that your team can refrag the kills that you couldn't get. Plus, this is also a good time to recognize that, hey, maybe there's going to be a heavy who's playing over here by secret, being an annoying person. If that's the case, all you need to do is just play for information. You play over here, you do damage, you don't need to fight that. If somebody walks into you, you could walk back, force them onto your terms, take the aggressive angle on them. When you're playing this spot, this is yours. And that's going to help you push. That's going to help you create opportunities for your team if they allow it. But usually, when they're playing on point, when they're playing in shutter, when they're playing in toxic, there's not much that you can do. And the number one thing that I hate the most, snipers and minis on fans. You are just unable to deal with them. They're even worse than the bush mini that just ends up shooting you when you walk forward, because at least then you can do reliable damage like over here. If you're peeking this angle, you peek the sniper, you peek everybody. So, and he can run away, so you're not doing damage to him. But at the same time, this isn't the only way of pushing. Although, it has a number of advantages. Because you're peeking the shutter, because you're so far away from people, I don't really use it all too much to push, per se. If my team we're getting ready for an Uber, like maybe this is evens or even like disad, for example, Like, if it's ad, I'm going to take it through ramp. Or I'm going to drop down from bats. Over here, for example. Or over here if I want to be really aggressive. But if I need to wait, this is the best place to wait. You get buffs, that's when you can go over to these spots. This becomes a nice little place for you to hang out, waiting for stuff to happen. With that being said, there is another idea. And we'll talk about it more when we talk about bats, but I just want to show it to you. You go into secret, and then you could start playing in Shutter identically, but you have this cover, and you're just a little bit more aggressive. The reason why I think that this is a nice thing to consider is because maybe people are all dropping down from bats. Maybe you need to get another angle that your team just happens to not be at. That's when Shutter comes into play. This is admittedly bad at dealing with the people on ramp. Like, for example, Spy, Soldier sitting in the corner waiting for arrows. Unless you're able to walk in from Shutter or from this spot anyway and just shoot them. Maybe if you play it all the way in the back and just kind of poke and prod, but at that time you're also being spotted by the roof players and people on fans and people over here, so... I don't want to encourage that kind of gameplay. But I will say, if your team is dropping off of bats, this gives you another angle for you to push from, and then you can get pretty much all the benefits from playing in Shutter without having played Shutter. Plus, you clear the stickies, and you can walk through with ease. And you can even clear the person up here if you notice that he's playing up here. Maybe you look at a weapon model, maybe you find something. Maybe it's just when you're clearing the stickies, or before you clear the stickies, check. Or, you know, maybe just like pre-fire, shoot the stickies beforehand, pre-fire, because you don't want to die to them. But either way, here's what I don't like about going through secret. It's telegraphed so fucking hard. If people know that you're going under, they're going to expect you to play crates because that is the fastest and most efficient way for you to play this. And if your combo goes through Shutter, or people on flank are helping you out, this becomes a really nice way for you to push as well. And I like going to this spot, especially when it's especially during like a post fight. Nobody sees me during the post fight, everybody's ran away, and that's when I can go ahead and start being aggressive if my team is still there supporting me. Of course, when I'm also playing in Shutter, maybe the Ubers end and it's in our favor, that's when it would be beneficial for me to start pushing as well. And you're going to notice a theme. When you're pushing from Shutter, like I said, you're gravitating towards this left side. Maybe you're hiding by Toxic, maybe you're hiding over here by Death Wall, maybe you're walking in and not hiding at all, going over to their going over to their crates, or just playing on the wall because you know that people are going to start hurting you on flank. Or hurting you on crates, and then you need to back up a little bit. Your team helps you in that fight because you realistically can't win it if they're already there. But as soon as you get over here, that's when you can start making the fight a whole lot more even, if not win. But we'll talk more about that later. I just kind of want to get into the mindset of what you should be doing before and during a push. But most of the time, you're either walking left or you're walking towards the middle. Maybe you're going for cap time, especially since you're going to be one of the main people who do it. If your team is playing with you, if you're able to support your team. After an Uber exchange goes well, assumingly people are going to start walking back in, that's when you start playing by crates. Maybe you can play by Toxic, by Death Wall, but standing on point is the most sufficient use of your time in that situation. But that's not every push. So let's talk more about bats. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can go about fighting bats. You can either go the long way, and trying to set yourself up over here before you inevitably drop down. Of course, when you also play this angle, you have the nice bonus of looking at anybody who's in Shutter. Here's the downside: you yourself are not playing Shutter. So I've seen a lot of heavies do this, and I personally don't subscribe to it because I believe that if you're going to be doing this, if you're going to be going to crates as a final thing, or if you're going under anyway, I'd rather not be seen. And the way that I do it, I usually just get a buff, go all the way down here, hope that nobody sees me on roof, and hope that nobody sees me by the crates. If I can do that, playing over here is pretty good. My team can then push from bats, I'm helping them out as well, but again, you need that support. If you're doing this all by yourself and they're playing aggressive, that's one thing. You could peek them and they're not prepared for you, you just win. But if they're prepared for you, if they know that you're over there, And there's a non-zero chance of that happening immediately. Because, you know, the spy exists. People can see you with their own eyes. In fact, one of the ways that I used to play it was playing like this to prevent people from dropping down bats and walking through. And I can also see the people with my shadows enabled, which I don't have on now, through this little secret part, and then I could just see them whenever. So, there's a lot to talk about with crates, but most of the time, crates is really, really, really good during a post fight. If your team pushes shutter, you can honestly hide behind this fence, helping your sniper or anybody else on bats, and that's when you can go ahead and try playing a little bit more aggressive. That's when you can start dropping down, maybe heading towards crates. Maybe you decide to go a little bit of a more sneaky route. You go over by the fence that we talked about that I don't really like playing on. Maybe you go all the way through, but at the same time, if you're doing this, you gotta do this during the Uber. That way when the post fight happens, now you're in a good position for you to fight, and you're fighting immediately. But remember, people are still going to try and stop you. If they didn't clear roof players are still gonna kill you. If nobody called under, if nobody cleared it, there's a pretty good chance that you might die before you're even able to play crates or while you're playing crates. That's why I make a big stick about it, to not be seen, and when you're not seen, try looking under. Get space in under. Try poking and prodding whenever you can. Because this is an important spot to try and push from, but it's not the only one. And here's the biggest flaw with it. Anybody on bats who sees you, or anybody on crates who sees you, or anybody in shutter who sees you if you are pushing, not when you're holding, but when you're pushing, minimizes your chance of success. If there's a sniper anywhere in this area, you are just not able to peek in the best way that you can. You can still fight, especially if they're playing shutter. You can play wide. You know, you could take the angle away from them. You could start peeking, helping your team, and trying to walk in anyway, despite that sniper standing there. But you're doing that in spite. That's one thing, but another thing, you're just probably going to die. Like, if that sniper is smart, he knows that you're locked down. All he needs to do is peek this angle, and that's it. He's paying attention to multiple things. All he needs to do is just lock you down in the position that you put yourself in. And I think that's pretty bad. So if you want to do this, the best way and the best time for you to do this, post fights, and if the sniper dies. If that happens, going over here is perfectly fine. But at the same time, that also applies to shutter, you know? And even then, you could still push out with your sniper. So even if you get shot, now your sniper kills their sniper and you guys have a winning fight. And we'll talk more about this on defense, because on defense, playing crates is actually better. Believe it or not. But I will say this. If you know that something is going... If you know that there's like an Uber exchange happening, this is a choice that you can make. You can try going up to... Excuse me, sorry. You could try playing by bats. And even better, instead of dropping down and playing by crates, you can then play fans, which is another idea that I picked up from a mentor of mine. The entire idea is the same. You play by shutter, wait for Ubers to happen. If they go out shutter, you play over here. And if your team is not in shutter, you can see that. If they play in shutter, you back up. The push is effectively done. You guys lost so much space. It would be much better for you to try and salvage with your team by pushing out with them. Or, even if your team backs up, that doesn't mean the fight's lost. If they keep on staying in shutter, maybe the fight's lost. If they start pushing out, or you see them not there at all, push fans. The idea is very similar, and you're more exposed, but roof players you're going to be able to deal with much more effectively than if you were playing on crates, because then you'd have to choose. Anybody in under, you can just run away from, play shutter. Play a much better angle against them, which this is the best way to fight them, by the way. You have to allow them the space, that way they're taking damage, they have to back up. But also, this just is really, really, really passive as well. Like, if your team is winning a fight, this is just kind of a guarantee that it's going to win even harder. And if your team has an even fight, you can make moments happen, especially if you drop down to crates. There's a lot of fluidity with it. But it's not going to always work if you just stand up there. You have to use the space effectively. If you see that nobody's there, do what any person should normally do and stand on the point and help cap. Don't sit up here for a prolonged period of time. That's what people want you to do. Because then you make yourself a target. The only reason why you're doing this is so you can support your team from a different angle. And if you need to, you could drop down and play a much more aggressive angle. But the main two things that you're looking for, who's on crates, who's in shutter, and also, well, I mean, just who's on the left side, who's in the middle. Who's on bats, who's playing crates, who's playing shutter. Once you get to, like, this fan, or maybe the barrel, that's when you can start, that's when you need to start considering, okay, what about toxic, what about ramp? And so many other angles. But at that point, when you're walking through, once you get to that point, you'd be better off just dropping down. Unless the fight is that prolonged. So, I'd use this to throw up. Sorry. I'd use this just as
Not bad, huh?
Fuck. God damn it, dude, no. The fucking hangover heavy. I had a bit too many drinks last night. Oh, who's there? No, but I just like to
Beyond
do
that,
this.
that'll be the burner moment.
No, don't. Let's not talk about him in that way. He's fine. He has a head glitch. Anyway, so he has two actually. But yeah, use this as an angle just to throw off people. You shouldn't be doing this all the time, but it is a nice way for you to change the pace. And more importantly, it keeps you on your toes. So, you're thinking about the action, you're seeing if it can work. Plus, if people are going to shoot you over here anyway, you're probably just going to die. So if you know that people are over here in fans, by bats, by shutter, just prepare to kind of like fight them. Or if they're by shutter, that's when you can go ahead and try and dropping down to play a bit more aggressive by this angle. Because I do like this. But if they start rotating over, you need to start rotating over. And you're going to see this philosophy 100% of the time without even realizing it. Long story short, I want you to mirror the way that the sniper's playing. If he's playing in shutter, there's no real way for you to peek without peeking him. Like if you're playing by crates, you peek him, or you can fight the people on point. If you're by death wall, there's no way to peek him without showing yourself, or you play toxic and show your head and then you die anyway. With shutter, you're just immediately right there. But the nice thing is, on both of these angles, if he's playing another angle, you have the option of just holding back and waiting for your team to help you fight, in which case you could peek together, and it doesn't matter if you die, if your team is already in and you made the space for them. But also, it gives you control over the pace of the fight. You can start looking for things like spies, like people bombing over who are trying to get you, like people who are walking forward on point to get you. This is especially the case with crates, because I really do like this angle. And if the sniper starts peeking you a whole lot more, this is going to expose him to a sniper, right? But the point that I'm talking about all of this for, the reason why I don't like this spot a whole lot is because of bats being such a good sniper spot. Most of the time, sniper sits there, but likewise, most of the time, heavy plays on the left side. So, keep that in mind whenever you're pushing down. This is really, really good when the sniper's dead. This is still good when the sniper's dead playing by shutter, but it's really, really good to play over here. Assuming that your team knows what they're doing, before a push even happens, let's just say it's a dry fight, your demo clears the people off of roof with stickies, maybe gets a kill or two. And that's when you can feel more motivated to go buy crates or maybe play even under, which I should also talk about, but not too much. You're going to see this more on defense. One of the main reasons why I don't want you to be seen is just because it makes it easy for them to counter you. If you show your hand too early, like you start fighting over here, and they notice that, they could drop down under, and in which case you mirror what they're doing. Especially if it's like a heavy ditto. But if you do the exact same thing, he's going to recognize that, and then you are going to be the one unprepared if you're unprepared for it. So please, notice this. Take notice of this. When you're playing by crates, look for where this heavy is at. If he's playing over here by the left or by the right side, that's one thing. If he's playing over here by crates, pay attention to what he's doing. Is he walking forward? And if so, What should I do if he's not walking forward? What should I do if I notice that he's not there at all? Is he eating? Is he low? Is he trying to help people? Are they baiting me into under? Usually not, because that would be fucking weird. But the more important part is if they're not playing aggressive, assume that they're going down into under. So if you need to, check it a little bit, and if you notice that they're back on the point, you mirror that. Mirror what this heavy is trying to do to you. Because you're shooting him, he's shooting you, or you're shooting his teammates, he's shooting yours. If you go all the way down when any of this is happening, he doesn't need to go for you. And more importantly, unless your team is just completely stopping him from walking forward, he doesn't even have to deal with you. If you yourself are not making this pressure known, he could just start attacking your teammates and start the fight anyway. And then boom, he's created so much space that by the time you're under, he sees where you're at, or he knows where you're at because you're playing under, trying to go for something that's not even there. So I just want to make you guys aware of all the nuances with this spot, because this is one of the most lucrative spots to try and play in. So many kills, so many opportunities, especially during pushes. Because if people start playing aggressive for no reason, and they do not know you're here, you mulch people with your team. But sometimes by yourself, and that feels equally nice. But more importantly, it has some bad habits. And I could go more into that, but I also talked about Secret already. I've talked about Shutter. Let's talk about Ramp. Now, Ramp, you need some prep time for this. You need info. But more importantly, you need cohesion with your engineer, your soldier, and your sniper. Or your engineer, your soldier, and your scout, or just your engineer and your soldier. But somebody should be on your sniper, so realistically, you should be doing this with more than 3 people. If you want this to work. The reason being, you do the exact same thing that you would in Shutter for your sniper, but now your soldier's getting behind, now your NG's getting behind as well if he puts down a dispenser, or he's watching for the spy. You are also watching for the spy, but you're playing forward, you're playing aggressive, you're playing for information. If you see people who are over here, they become prime cut targets. And as long as you're not over peeking, they're gonna have to back up a little bit. You can also just not engage. Watch for bombers, watch for spy. Help your sniper claim this angle for himself. If the sniper dies, or he's out of commission, like let's just say he's playing by Shutter, leaving over to fans, or leaving over to bats, then you can play over by toxic, if not just playing aggressive over here. It's the exact same idea that what we've been talking about so far. But what makes this awesome is the fact that if you're playing over here and they go fans, which is going to happen more times than not, or playing bats more times than not, you are doing really, really good. Because you don't have to peek him unless he starts peeking you. Or unless you show yourself and then you're peeking him, and he has advantage. But I want you to just make note of this. I didn't talk about this when playing crates, and I should have. If the sniper goes toxic, this spot becomes the best spot for you to push from. Now, I'm not saying theory craft against the snipers that you will be playing, but I'm saying theory craft against the snipers that you're going to be playing during the match. Like, take into account that this can change at any moment, and be aware that you're going to need to improvise a little bit. But if you notice that the sniper is playing over here, the better angle is for you to just go towards the angle where he's sitting at. Because chances are, if he's playing over by toxic or ramp, he's unable to deal with you. If he's shooting from ramp and you're on ramp, you're dead. If you're playing from crates and he's on bats, you're dead. So that's why you need to pay attention to the angles, because this is the best angle for you to push from. You either peek over here, and you kill him. This is so stuff. That's so my bad. No, but like, this is the main thing that you need to look for when you're peeking the angles. Where's the sniper? Can I help my sniper peek the other sniper? And if so, what can I do to best support myself? Is this going to be a whole lot of theory crafting just for the sniper to go the other angle anyway? Probably. Unfortunately, probably. But at the very least, now you know when you're fucked up or when you're not fucked up. One thing I will say, don't sit in these angles for a prolonged period of time unless you're playing over here by ramp. Because if you're peeking in shutter and you're staying in shutter, you give up all the space. If you're playing over by crates, you give up all the space if you don't walk forward. Over here, at least you have the information that you could play with, right? Watch for people dropping in, watch for people coming down, watch for people on roof. There's a whole lot that you can do in this spot. But the one thing you can't do is push. Not by yourself, no, that's where your team comes in. And if that sniper's playing toxic, guess what you're doing? You're enabling him to go to toxic to try and kill you. That's going to enable your team to walk in on the opposite angle. Or if he's playing in shutter, you all peek him together and hope that he doesn't shoot you or your teammates. And if he does, hopefully it's you. That way your teammates can help you out. If not, it kind of sucks. But if he gets an engineer kill, let him have it. But yeah. That's the main philosophy that I really have for pushing. Most of it just comes down to where they're sitting, how passive they're sitting, and more importantly, what you're able to get from each of the angles, but also what are some of its disadvantages. With this, the only disadvantage is you can't directly fight them forward, but you also have this nasty sniper sight line that you can't really sit in. And if your engineer's not there, let's just say he's dealing with somebody behind, you then become the protector of your sniper. You're forced to sit on him. If you leave him out to dry, chances are a bomb or a spy is going to kill him. And you're going to not be able to do anything about it. So please keep that in mind. There's a lot that can go into it, but the more important part is that you're enabling people to get behind, so like a soldier, maybe an NG, maybe a scout, and you enable your sniper to peek over here, and you enable yourself to give information for your team, and immediately stop any current aggression. However, again, like with bats, if you see people by your shutter, you have to let that be known. Because again, you are not playing over here by shutter. You need your pyro over here. So on bats, or when you're playing over here by ramp, the number one thing I will need to tell you is, okay, let it be known when you're not playing in shutter. Saying, just say, I'm not playing shutter, I'm going ramp. I'm not playing shutter, I'm going crates. I'm not playing shutter, I'm playing the post fight on fans. Something along those lines is going to help you guys out tremendously. Especially during a dry fight. If you know that they're playing aggressive, the best thing for you to do is to play shutter. If for whatever reason you make the choice to leave the one only place that you can really play at, it enables them to start walking in and dishing out damage to you. And you are going to be useless sitting in these spots. So again, you have roles. But if they're not forward, they're conditioned, and you know where the sniper is, that's when you can go ahead and start peeking the angle. You can start forcing mistakes, like playing over here isn't ideal for you, but it's ideal for your team pushing down. And if he goes into shutter to prepare for them, that's when you can start inching forward and taking space. Of course, he could just quickly snap back to you, so you can't walk yet, but if your team walks, you walk. And if his sniper's on fans or bats, you walk in, you claim space, and you take it with your team, or you take it for yourself and tell your team to walk in because they're baiting shitties. But also, don't get overheated. Because as quickly as you could take space, they could take it back. Let me talk to you about holds. I'm going to talk to you about the way that some people really, really like playing. And I'm going to tell you about the way that I usually tend to play this. With the usual way that I play it, I'm up on death wall from 0% Uber to 80% Uber. And my main goal is not to necessarily play on crates. If the sniper dies, or maybe a couple of people die, or people are just dropping down and I need to be part of the fight, of course I'm here. But I've noticed that people just spam you out a whole bunch before they even push, and if you get spammed out, chances are they're going to walk for you insanely fast because they're already there. But also, they're just going to chimp for you until you die. You do not want to die. So, the most important part is gauge when you're able to peek up and when you're forced to play back. If you know that they're going to start spamming you soon, get a buff, play for one. Play in the back over here and hope that your team has ramp. If they don't have ramp, you need somebody to let you know. But maybe that's more of a reason for you to play on point, for example. Or maybe that's more of a reason for you to sit on the wall to begin with. Maybe it's a sign for you to play a little bit back, not backing up all the way, but just enough to prevent them from killing you outright on ramp. And you're going to notice this. If you have no ramp pressure, or somebody's not watching ramp, maybe like a spy or a soldier are the best ones for you to, for them to do so, you can't really hold forward. And this makes the spot a little bit more tumultuous because at any point, you could just die from any of these angles. If you notice that you're also playing up, and you're the only one up, check where your team is at and make this a base of operation over here. I love playing by shutter. I'm going to talk to you more about how you are best able to hold it. But the number one thing, if you're playing forward, at any point in time, you need ramp control or you need to know where the sniper is. Sometimes both. If you know he's on bats, now you know that the only thing pressuring you is people on ramp like heavy, soldier. If you know the soldier's going behind, guess where you can go? Back over here, because you don't need to go backwards. If this is the only person pressuring you, you should feel more inclined to start playing a little bit more aggressive, assuming that your demo's also watching the shutter, right? But again, people can spam into you. So the way that I played it is from 0 to 80%, I'm playing on this wall, doing a little dance. I'm checking to see people on ramp, people shutter, people on bats. Nope, nope, nope. I can play a little bit forward. If not, if there were people, I'm playing a little bit back. But you see the flaw in this, right? This enables people going over to here, and that's what makes these pushes unpredictable, right? If you know that the other heavy is going to be playing in this way, you are just not really prepared. You are relinquishing space, and they are doing the most optimal thing, and just taking that space away from you forever, because you're dead. So, why did I stand over here? It's still important for you to do this, because if you're not playing over here by crates, it's just your demo watching bats and shutter. That shouldn't happen. You should be playing forward. So, one of the things that I really liked to do back then, which doesn't really work as much now, is I'm either aggressive with my demo, holding up by their shutter, taking away space away from the shutter, while my demo can watch bats. And of course, people still are on ramp, but at least then, people are... Well, not only that, but like people are forced to kind of play on bats and shutter. Because if you're playing aggressive, the best way to deal with people by their shutter is for them to send a sniper on bats to clean you guys out. As soon as that happens, or as soon as that threat is made available and you know about it, that's when you can start backing up. You're doing this to stall for time. But I'd argue that this is more of a forward play than it is a forward hold, if that makes sense. You're going over here to make this forward hold that much longer. So, what do you do about the spam? Unfortunately, I don't really have much to say. People have become much more consistent at dealing with the spam to deal with the people in crates. So much so that I haven't really thought about playing right over here. But it has the similar idea of me playing over here, just watching out for people on the left side of bats, like maybe a sniper is playing over here, that's when I back up, start peeking this side. If I know people are going to spam me, I then back up, and that's when I relinquish the space. That's when people can start going over. But again, this is me being conditioned. But this is going to most likely happen to you, so unfortunately, this is just going to be something you're going to have to deal with as well. Assume that spam is going to come around this angle, because if you don't, this hold is going to be much worse for y'all. You need to eat. And then all of a sudden, now they start walking in, and you're in a much more passive spot. And then that enables their sniper, or maybe that enables their sniper to peek shutter, or ramp players to peek into point, or shutter players to peek into point. But the number one important thing is when this 80 to 100% Uber came into play, I backed off, and I usually played by shutter. The important part about shutter is that this is a universal hold. This is really great to play with people because you have your sniper over here, you have your demo forward a little bit, you have people playing in the shutter like you, your pyro. People are playing on all sides. But the more important thing is if they take an Uber exchange into you, you immediately run away. And then you can immediately refight them. Or they take a dry fight, you can meet them during this dry fight. Let's just say your sniper gets a really nice shot on their medic. It's no longer even Ubers. Now you can walk out, and again, with that same gameplay loop, you're playing aggressive, you're taking away space from them. If you sit and shutter, you give them that space. And the reason why shutter is powerful is because at any time you guys can back up, re-push from bats or re-push from shutter. And it's still holding the point, because they need to spend all that time capping. Now they're going to be pressured by the people on bats and you and maybe a couple of other people from shutter. But again, the same threats still apply. A large space means snipers rule. And if he's playing in shutter, you're dead. If he's playing toxic, you might die. If he's playing fans, you might die as well. But again, most of these spots are exposed. And normally a sniper should be playing with you in this angle to prepare for that fight to begin with. But the more important part, it should be assumed that this sniper is going to appear there. And your main goal when you're playing in shutter, it's not to leave and bait so you can walk back in, to give them a false sense of courage so that when they walk in, they die. The more important part is to protect your medic. Because at any point in time, if you have Uberad and they have like a massive amount of disad, it'd be much better for you to play over here by shutter to protect your med from people bombing in than it would be for you to play toxic, or it would be for you to play up on the point. You are really great at denying bombs. Make this the default bomb denying push, or the bomb denying hold. Because at that point, your medic can just play and shutter, farm Uber off of you, and not even peek the sniper. He can also spy check a little bit. I just hit my mouse on the wall. And it just becomes really streamlined. And I want you to just... Sorry, what's up?
I just had a question. What, like, game state is this in, where you would want to be doing this again?
You're holding the point, but there's a threat of a sack, so... You just...
Oh, okay.
And when it's even Ubers, or maybe it's Uber disad, and you want to force that Uber out without anybody dying, that's when you can go ahead and play over here. The nice thing...
Quick question.
What's up?
If they are doing a stack since they are on disad, is it okay for heavy to be on toxic to deny the stack, or to play up near their crate if they are doing that type of stack?
Okay, I just mentioned how these two spots are worse.
Oh.
Like, okay, I'll give you more of an example. You make yourself less of a threat from people on ramp, because that is a possibility for them to just play in. You're still a threat to somebody in shutter. That doesn't change no matter where you stand. You can't really deny the people going into shutter. At least when you're standing over here, you can walk out and prevent them from getting close to this space. But over here, you have much less of a chance of making that happen, unless you just outright kill them.
Or just on top of the target, not behind, on top.
On top, same idea.
Yeah.
You're still exposed to ramp, if not even more, because that sniper can probably peek you over here now. Yeah.
Well then, just be in the corner of the outside the shutter area to
and it's
prevent
not like you just need to play over here. Sometimes you could just play the spot in the middle, maybe over here. But again, you need to look out for these angles. People who are running behind. Now you can easily go onto bats and start dealing with them to prevent them from getting any sort of space on your bats, or maybe even behind if you let that happen. You see
At least I learned something new. At least I learned something new
that you can
back
get
then.
from this spot. And from that...
At least I learned something new compared to back then.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to talk. I'm glad that you learned something new. But let me just finish my point. The best part about this is the fact that you can get information. You know where people are, and you can actually deal with it because you're in that much of a passive spot. But, at the same time, when you make these commitments, know that you're not protecting your medic from shutter. Or your sniper, or your demo. And we'll talk more about this idea during the mid-fight, because a lot of this ties into pushing and holding. But I more so just want to go into the fact that, yeah, you can stand here during even Ubers. You can stand here during disad. One thing that you could do is try playing a little bit up when it's ad. If you know it's an ad Uber, you can make yourself that much more of a threat. Instead of playing over passive, you could play aggressive towards crates. Maybe you can make this a default spot. Who knows? Honestly, I should try making this more of a default spot. I really like the idea. But the only problem is that if people are walking shutter and I'm paying attention to this, and they're walking at the same time, I'm dead. Plus, people on ramp just deal with me. I want to stand here as much as possible, but I don't want to let people drop down, you know what I mean? Like, ever since I've been spammed out from people at top of invite, I've been unable to check these angles as consistently. And I don't really know how to deal with that. Admittedly, I don't really know how to deal with that without exposing myself to these few spots. Can a team play around that? Sure. They absolutely can. Is that the most optimal thing to do? No. Because if you're trying to overcompensate with a heavy playing over here, by playing over by shutter aggressively or having people on ramp aggressively, that's going to make you guys prone to more mistakes. And unfortunately, sometimes you just have to give the heavy the spot because of the threat that you pose onto him if you just have a sniper go fans or bats or him just playing shutter. So the more I think about it, it sucks because you can't do these things, but at the same time, you're kind of just playing to deny people on the point, not people off of bats. You're playing more objective-oriented than you are playing positionally oriented. Like, sure, you have the space, but do you really want to take it if it means you die? These are the questions that you gotta ask yourself, and more importantly, what's the game state like? Do I need to start playing aggressive? Do I need to start playing by crates so I can prevent them from walking in? Is there 10 seconds left on the clock and we still have point? We have pressure, so I'm just going to hide over here and wait for people to walk into me. Am I going to bait a little bit? Do I play over here and let whatever happen? Like, there's no guarantee that you win the spot if you bait. Again, sniper playing shutter or toxic deals a lot of damage to you if you're playing ramp or toxic or on point. And that's just a threat you're going to have to consider. But this is not the only way of playing. And there's one other person that I really look up to who's made me confused. Made me confused in the way where it's just, is this way too passive? In my opinion, I don't know. But what I do know is that it's still a great idea to do on paper if they know where the sniper is. If you know where the sniper is at all times, if your spy's calling it out to you, instead of playing over here by death wall, you can try preparing for a push by playing over here by crates. The idea being, you still watch people over here by shutter, but because you're this far into crates anyway, you can make going under a possible threat and a quick one at that. If you're committed to the idea and you don't hesitate, and maybe if you play with some people, but it's not always required, submarine heavy is an idea. But that's not the main thing, right? I'm not taking this from Burner, I'm taking this from Eerie. He didn't go all the way under all the time. His idea was to have him bait a little bit, so that when his sniper eventually won against Brian, for example, that's when this pressure becomes that much better. So at that point, yeah, he was just playing the Theorycraft against our team. Well, I don't know what I'm talking about. But, okay, alright. So we can assume that sometimes you're going to be playing against a sniper who's worse than your sniper. If that's the case, or just not really doing as consistently as your sniper, so you guys end up winning that fight. If your sniper gets shots on their sniper, they're playing undiligently, you can have much more success playing over by crates if you're holding. If you're pushing, that's a different story. That sniper still plays by shutter, and you're not helping your sniper in shutter. Which is why you help him in shutter by playing by... This is why playing shutter is so good, because it enables your sniper to get protection, and you're also helping him out without him exposing himself. Sorry, I'm like going back and forth. I'm not really talking about the holds per se. I'm just talking about the theory about them. I find that more fascinating for me. Because prior to this point, I kind of just been playing... I have been playing, like... mindlessly. Yeah, I expect these spots to work all the time. Admittedly. Like, shutter? Sure, sometimes. But, again, you're playing way too passive. This is where you need to be a little bit more flexible. If you know that your sniper is worse than their sniper, sometimes it might be better for you to just have an idea on where that sniper is to best gauge where to push. That's a skill invaluable, but it's one that's very hard to learn and master. And even still, You need your team in order for you to support that even happening. If you guys aren't playing to kill the sniper, you have to focus on someone else. You focus on the more aggressive players first, but if they start backing up and playing around their sniper, that's when you have to start helping your sniper out. Because at that point, the fight is forced. So, the question is, how hard of a task can that be? When you're holding, you can make that extremely hard for the other sniper, depending on where you stand. But the more important thing is just being aware of the opportunities that are presented in front of you, but also the possibilities that can happen as well. When you have these aggressive spots, that doesn't mean that you can play aggressive forever. That just means that you're going to be quickly dealt with if they have an opportunity to do so. And if your team is playing aggressive, now they need to start dealing with your team, but they can start dealing with your team a whole lot more better if you come to their side of the map. You know what I mean? And you can't always relinquish space. Sometimes it's better for you to play these aggressive spots, or these loony bin spots, because they're just not expecting it. So, the only real thing that I can say when it comes to holding, be dynamic. That's been a key thing that I've always tried to push onto people. Because if you're doing the same thing over and over again, these spots are going to not work and be less efficient. It pays a lot for you to just spice things up. But that also means you need to be aware of when you can play aggressive, when you can't play aggressive, and more importantly, just understanding your role. If you know that you guys have Uber ad, you protect your medic, you play by your medic a little bit more. Maybe it's necessary for you to just be in spots where you can be out of this Uber exchange, if it does come to that. Even during an ad Uber, you might just back up a little bit. Not all the way over here, but maybe you're just playing on ramp, for example, or by death wall, and then slowly inching your way back up, so you can take away their space. Or, you know, maybe you just wait for them to walk in, they send spam, they hit nothing, so you start walking in after that spam comes in. Stuff like that. But more importantly, you know, what if they have a heavy that's down there waiting for this to happen? Sure, that can always happen, but you gotta be aware of that. This is why information is that much more important. If you know this heavy over here is going to be playing aggressive, you can play around that. There are advantages to playing around that. If you are making yourself not seen, this spot becomes a whole lot better. Going under becomes a whole lot better. Doing anything becomes a whole lot better. And if you know where they're at, any single push that you can do is going to be that much better because you know where people are standing. And once you have the information you start playing out, now you know where they're going to stand in the future and where they're going to be pushing from. Like, there's ideas. If they leave Shutter, if their combo leaves Shutter, you know they're either peeking out bats or Shutter, so you can play around that. You can start getting cap time and waiting for something to happen. If they take an Uber exchange or they're about to, you can preemptively play over here. You don't need to sit on the point. Of course, point time needs to be forced, but at the same time, you're not the only one who does that. It's your scout, it's your NG, it's people who are more mobile than you. But at the same time, you don't want to bait them. What if there's no Uber? What if you can deny the Uber? What if you can play around it? These are all things you have to consider. And I was just talking about pushing. If you're holding, you don't need to worry about any of that. So take that with a grain of salt. It is a pretty weird way for me to end this discussion of the holds and the pushes. But there's not really much for me to talk about besides the forward holds and the silly shit. So let's talk about that before we do the mid fights. Like I said before, you can play aggressive during the hold. Your demo watches bats, you watch Shutter. The entire idea being, if they start peeking Shutter, you can quickly deal with them. Or, if you peek Shutter first, you get a 450, you can maybe catch some people out. Maybe, because it's not always guaranteed. And even still, there's always the threats of people on ramp, and people in bats. Bats being the more important angle because Sniper loves sitting there. If you wipe them, have somebody standing on the cap. Playing a forward hold is pretty simple. You're playing in either 3 angles. You're playing over here, watching lobby and boiler. You're playing on bats, looking over here. Going back to the spot, because I forgot about talking about this, you can peek over here, look at lobby, and then simultaneously peek bats and peek the people walking in. You're playing over here just to kind of get the kill and be silly, but people don't usually look over here anyway, so it kind of works. And if your team is playing a little bit passive, along fans. And the reason why I say along fans, people walk in, you're helping people leave, and then that's when you can have ideas like staying up over by barrels and just being a complete fucking weirdo. But at the same time, recognize again, people on ramp can deal with you. If people know that you're in shutter, they're not going to peek you and they're just going to force you to leave because you're that low on HP. But another thing, oh dude, people who drop down from bats can just start dealing with you over here. And because you're not mobile like the soldier, there's only a select few places that you can go. If you go secret or into their shutter, you're probably just going to be at the whim of whatever team you face. Of course, that is an idea that can work. If people are all dropping down, then maybe they take an Uber exchange, but that's a very rare occurrence. Because people should be on top of their shit when it comes to this. If you make this work, something went terribly wrong on the other team. It wasn't because you made a great play, it's because they fucked up somewhere. Unfortunately. Like, that's how it is. And of course, there's also ideas of you playing on their ramp. You know, you play over here with your soldier or somebody peeking for you, giving you information. And then you just sort of peek with them and take the space away and then you can play back. There's ideas of people being able to play over here for a hold. With the idea of holding toxic. So you could then back up if you need to, or you can stay aggressive in their ramp. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that this strat is kind of a little bit dependent on how shit the other team is. Again, if they know what if they know what you're going to be doing, and they're expecting you to be playing in these spots, they know how to deal with you. These spots only work against people who are not prepared for them. And this is where weird play comes, because yes, you can absolutely sit behind here if you have somebody playing aggressive on ramp. And then of course, if people are on ramp, that's when you go ahead and start playing more aggressive into them. And helping your soldier out. But again, this is selfish, because you're also enabling them to bomb onto your combo. And sometimes your pyro is just not going to be able to deny... my bad. Sometimes your pyro is just going to be unable to deny a pyro, demo, soldier, engineer, scout, and sniper peeking at the exact same time for your medic. And we're not bringing back the old Season 8 strat of playing on the back of ramp. That is just not happening. So with these holds, with these plays, and I didn't talk about underbats, but... fuck it, I'll talk about underbats. There's a couple of ways you can play it. You can play it directly under here if you wanted to be weird. There's also ideas of this, but again, shutter and ramp just sees you. People under here can see you as well, but it's usually not going to be the case unless people are playing in the back over here, which is also fucking weird. Oh shit. Oh, my bad.
I thought that was just done for emphasis.
Well, I did do that, but then my water bottle fell, so... And now it's not even in the same spot. Alright. There we go. But yeah, people are just able to see you through the grates. There is an idea for you to play over here, because once you're past this point, the only angle that they could see you from is over here. But again, if you're peeking your minigun barrel up, they see you like right over here. They know what you're doing. As long as you're hidden, it's fine, because then this play becomes something worthwhile. It's something to consider. But it's not something that you should act upon every single time. Because again, you want these holds to be stable. These spots enable you to just die. And then your team gives up the space. If your team is much better than their team, you might die still, but they might be able to hold it. But against a better team, you dying is going to mean the difference between holding and not holding. So please be careful with that. With that being said, is there any other questions for the pushes and holds? Because I really want to talk about the mid-fight.
feel like I already know the answer to this, but is there anything you can do if, like, every mid you just keep getting headshot, like, as soon as you get out of shutter? Because, like, I've tried going crates if that happens, but unless I just, like, completely bait the mid, seems like there's nothing I can do against a sniper who just is intent on killing a heavy.
If he's intent on killing you, that's one thing. What is your sniper doing? Is he
I don't
letting
know,
it
usually
happen,
just,
or he's like getting the kill back?
I think is usually maybe, I think letting it happen to try to shoot, like, someone else.
I can't say much about the situation because that does happen sometimes during the mid-fight. If you know a sniper is going to be focusing you, you take that shot away from any other player on your team. At that point, you kind of fulfilled your role. You have 450. The best you can do is just make it unpredictable for that sniper to shoot you. And at the same time, you're telling your teammates, yeah, that sniper is going to be doing that to me. Sniper, you need to shoot him. Which is going to enable your sniper to maybe play over here, for example. Or play a little bit in, so that when you die, he could get the shot immediately, and then he just backs up. And then can play Shutter again. Yeah,
About the mid fight, it's going to be a death ball scenario. Yes, you're going to get killed as heavy by the sniper, but yeah, you either going to Ooga Booga into it mid fight, death ball everything, or be a wall for your sniper and med so you can drop a bomb,
That's
early bomb.
I do agree with Kega. That is ideally what should be happening. But at the same time, I've also seen so much counterplay, and most of it just depends on what your team is doing. And that is much more in your control, so let's talk about that. Ideally, during a mid-fight, 450s, you never go bats, go Shutter, and you're going directly over to Death Wall. The reason being, you don't do enough damage for you to constitute revving over here. Revving over by Toxic would be considered slow. If you're revving by Shutter, you are just actively throwing because you enable these sniper shots. Where are you revving, by the way, Jeff? Are you revving in these aggressive spots or not?
The aggressive spots? Not really. I usually rev, like, kind of as I'm walking through Shutter, from what I remember.
That's probably why. Here's what it looks like for the sniper, by the way. Like, he's sitting in Shutter. He's already prepared, right? Then you slowly rev. You're dead. You have to make it harder for him to kind of shoot you. And I know that's, you know, it's like, doy, what did I think of that? This guy is terrible. No, it's like... I don't want to make fun of you, by the way. Like, I'm not saying that you think that. But
No, you're chill. Where did you say to, like, you should be revving?
You should try revving over here, and if you can be aggressive, over here. The reason being, like I said, revving over here doesn't do that much damage compared to revving over here. Like, sure, you're jump revving, and ideally that shouldn't be anything that you try to do. But you're also aggressive, you're doing as much damage as you would have done playing over here. Plus, you're also still being revved within that second. You're immediately up in the fight, people look at you, people shoot you, and ideally your team is either hiding behind you or being another threat on a different plane. So the entire idea is you pushing with your team, they walk in from a different angle, or they're being supported by you being that wall. Here's the issue. There is nothing stopping people from going over roof. There's no stopping people going over by crates, walking into you. Not playing behind crates itself, no. Walking into you directly. There's no stopping a sniper from just going on to Toxic anyway and dealing with you. In fact, one of the few things that I can really tell you, if you get sniped in these spots, at least you have the option of going Death Wall and eating, but what's going to stop a soldier or people from walking in and bombing in, you know? Like, if you're forced to do that, something is going wrong. Maybe your sniper's not taking a shot. Maybe you both were playing aggressive. Like, your sniper, you're walking out at the same speed that this heavy and this sniper's walking out. Maybe the fight happens
Or the
here.
scout, or the scout isn't on.
Yeah, I mean, even still, it's like sometimes the soldier bombs all the way over here and he gets into your Shutter. Maybe he bombs in from bats and goes behind, but then immediately repeaks, meaning that this wall is now not safe to be at. As much as I would say play back, you can't really do that when all of these threats are a major thing. What have I seen heavies do to remedy this? They play by toxic. And I really don't like that idea. But it might just be the thing that works. Maybe. I'm going to say try it out. But for a mid-fight...
Toxic on a mid-fight?
Again, I really don't like this idea. But the idea is you deal with the people who are playing aggressive, and then you can start walking forward. The exact same idea is kind of present over here. You bait a little bit, wait for people to trickle in. If they don't, you can take space away from them with your combo. But this is assuming that they're not going to jump into you or not going to snipe you. And sometimes this passive play works, you know? Like, maybe you catch their sniper at a really bad time. Like, maybe he's rotating. Like, maybe he's going from, like, toxic over to ramp, and by the time he, like, peeks you guys again, you guys are already in. Or maybe he's going shutter with the idea of going bats, but again, there's still that idea of you walking in. So, assuming that he's not holding the angle, this idea works, but if he's holding the angle, this idea just becomes increasingly unviable. And I used to just say, oh, just stick it out. You know, you die, but your team's not dying. No, usually your team dies before you, which is the craziest fucking part. Or you just die immediately. Like, it's to a point where I don't even know what to really consider. The only thing that I can really tell you is what's in front of you and what can you immediately deal with. What's the immediate value that you can give your team? And if the fight prolongs, when can I get over here? At that point, that's what the mid-fight's about. And I've seen oh my god, this pisses me off to no end. I've seen Eerie do this. Holy fuck, it annoys me. Yeah, he's able to play this.
Wow.
Yeah, like, you think this spot wouldn't work. But when people are not going on roof to deal with the roof players, when people are just not doing their jobs, oh, it feels so fucking annoying. But how much is that on me? Not too much. Right? Like, this is just him doing silly shit for silly shit's sake. He's improvising as he's going along. He doesn't really care if he wins the mid-fight or not. He just wants to see if the idea works. I think that that should be mirrored. And the most important thing during a mid-fight is what can I get away with? Are there people who are bombing in? And if so, when do I rev to deal with these players? Is the soldier going behind? Do I chase him? Ideally, no, because you shouldn't do that during a mid-fight. You should be able to walk forward, making ramp less of a presence for you to be on. And what is your team doing? You know, like, are they walking forward? Are they doing the exact same stuff? And if so, is their sniper going to even be a threat if he's just going to immediately die to a soldier bomb? And if so, where do I stand? Do I wait and then just deal with the people who are currently going in while allowing my teammates to do these things? Maybe that's the idea. You know, I never had like a cut and dry mid-fight talk in a while with my team. But maybe I should do that. Because as far as I'm concerned, ideal way to play it, always try revving close. If you're revving over here, this is fine. But the main point, again, should be, what should I do afterwards? Should I be playing forward? Should I be playing back? And if so, what am I using my health for? What am I doing damage for? Am I looking for people who are playing in front of me? Or am I doing everything in my power to keep on walking forward? Are there threats that I need to be calling? What is the main thing? And usually, you are not going to be the deciding factor of a fight. But sometimes you are. Usually when the demo and sniper both die on each team. That's when your life becomes equally that much more important. And that's when you can start playing these baity spots. If you know their sniper's not going to be able to deal with you, make it hard for anybody else to really deal with you. You know, like maybe instead of like crouch walking over here and just doing no damage while also having the possibility of dying, what if you just did this? And dropped rev on this wall, looked up, nobody was in, maybe nobody's in now, and then you start walking forward.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it could be good to bait. Sometimes it's terrible to bait. And unfortunately, you can't really predict any of this from happening. You could predict ideas. Like, if you know that they're going to be doing a silly sack where they send their demo and medic with quick fix into your shutter. Like, just deal with them and then the push is won.
Mm-hmm.
But if you know that they're going to be doing this stuff, you make it apparent to just deal with the people in front of you. Help your team be a wall, but of course, prevent the people from getting space onto you guys. And of course, make sure that you're watching out for people going behind. People on the roof who are just immediately in. And sometimes they can't deal with it as well. And that's why you need to support them when they are chasing behind. Like a scout or a pyro doing that, for example. Now you don't have anybody denying except for you. So your life then becomes more important, but it also is more expected of you to be supporting your demo and your medic while walking forward. But you can't do that because you have roles that other people aren't fulfilling or are currently fulfilling in other places. So you have to be on your feet. You have to go at it in a fundamental way. You know that engineers, scouts, and pyros are really good at denying. But a scout, a soldier, and a sniper are going to be really good at giving you guys opportunities. A spy is going to be able to be a wild card in case the fight goes on for a long period of time. Because the only chances of him getting in are if he's cloaked or if he's DR'd, and you know how that goes, because the sniper— oh my fucking god. Spies always do this, every single spy. And I'm like, I'm a great spy. DR's over here, walks at the heavy, and then immediately goes to shutter, bats, or ramp. It's like, oh my... I've seen that happen so many fucking times. Sometimes they go down
10
here.
billion IQ spy.
Sometimes they go down here and then fight from your crates. Like, bro. Or they just— oh my... they decloak over here. With DR. What are you doing?
I've seen spies do that. That's really... I don't know why they think that would work, but
Okay,
it
no,
never
it
does.
works because they fulfill the role of any single person who's playing aggressive. You take eyes away from people, and it's just another angle for people to peek at. All of this to say, you have very little control when it comes to what you actually can do, unless people are dead. So you have to play that supportive role. You have to be very flexible given a situation. Do you stand over here? Do you walk forward? Do you have to go back because people are just dead? Ideally, you shouldn't, and that should only be the last option if you're the only one alive, but ideally you want to win the mid-fight. You want to help your people forward. But of course, if people like the sniper are dealing with you, there's not much that I can really say that can help you out. If that sniper's focusing you and nobody's dealing with him, they won the mid-fight for their team. Not to paint you out to be a target, but just kind of forcing mistakes. Or capitalizing off of mistakes. You know, that soldier going behind forces the mistake of the pyro chasing him. Because then, instead of that pyro being the only one who needs to protect your medic, now it's you. And you can't walk forward because of that.
It have to be someone else fighting the soldier. Oh, just let the soldier take the bait and then go after him afterwards.
Well, sometimes you can't really necessarily bank on that fact, because what if the soldier recognizes that and then just does this immediately as soon as he bombs over? He doesn't get the pack, he just starts doing damage to you. Then what?
Or then, probably the scout or the engineer have to do it. But this engineer going to be on bat anyway. Engineer going to be on bat anyway.
Engineer's bat, scout might be on roof by that time. If not, he's the one dealing with the soldier. If not, your pyro's then forced to deal with him. While he's reflecting over here, you are the only one protecting your medic from anybody trying to bomb over or walking in front of you. And then that's when you get sniped, because now you're the prime target that's preventing them from doing that. And I'm so big on sniper right now, mostly because he's the main deciding factor in a lot of these pushes. But also just because of how volatile this fight ends up being, you know? And that's why I wanted to change the formula up a little bit and really divulge into this. Because mid-fights change so much, I can't suggest doing the normal thing anymore. That's the
normal death balling?
That's the ideal thing that you can try to do. Because deathballing isn't really deathballing at that point, it's just walking forward. Taking space away from them. Putting pressure in different lanes that they're forced to look at one at a time. But in this current state of the game, with the mid-fights being this volatile, you are just kind of left up in the air, and the only thing that I can really say is be the shot, or take the shot that would have killed your med. Unfortunately, that's what you're going to have to deal with.
Just eat the good damage.
Well,
just eat the good damage.
If your team... Well, I'm not saying that necessarily. Sometimes you need to bait a little bit. I'm just saying play off of the opportunity that's given to you, and if you have none, then you can be inclined to bait a little bit. But that's not always the best idea. you know? Like, it's annoying, but this stuff works because people just don't deal with them. You could abuse that. I'm not saying you can't, but you could. If you know that you're playing against a worse team, you could just do that to throw them off.
Yeah.
But that's also just not the way that you should be learning. That's a great way of playing if you want to throw things off and just make them, like, that much more unprepared for what you have in store for them. But against a better team, that is a terrible way of playing because they know fundamentally what they should be doing. And I'm having this conversation not towards y'all, but more so towards myself at this point. Because I'm going to be facing off against Lenny, and admittedly, I don't really like the way that Brian's been playing so far. I know Brian has it in him to be better than Lenny, mechanically speaking. But positionally, Lenny just has more game sense. And I need to deal with that. And it's hard dealing with that because he's one of the best to ever do it. And he's on a team with a lot of players that he's been playing with for years.
Who is your heavy? Who is Lenny teammate?
Erie. Fish.
Erie Pete.
Poseidon.
Erie pushing.
Blank.
Erie push.
Like, they have...
Blank?
They have...
Blank
like,
heavy.
They probably...
Blank.
Oh my god, Kega.
What?
I just listed off a couple of different people playing different classes, but they play on Witness Gaming, right? Witness Gaming is probably the best team in Invite so far. By a long shot, unless they fuck up or we just get better. And I'm kind of put in that stretch of, what do I learn about this? When stuff that I know works doesn't work because of things out of my control. What can I really say? Unfortunately, there's not much that I can. You know?
Just protect the Doman, I guess. Protect Doman.
That's
They're
an
dying.
idea, but that's not always the best idea. That's what I'm really trying to get at. Because oftentimes, that's just not how the gameplay like, that's not how it is. You can't base it off of certain facts because at that point, or sorry, that was a terrible point. No, you can't base it off of expectations. Because when they get crushed, you don't know what to expect next. So you kind of have to go into that fluid mindset. Some things work, some things don't. That's what I kind of want to teach to you guys. Not that things will always work out. But I want to teach you the fundamentals so that you can break them when it's needed the most. And I say break them, I really do mean break them. Break the fundamentals of why things work the way they do. If you have good cohesion with your team, chances are you don't need to deal with the people who do who have one invite, you know? Like, you don't need to play against those players. You get to play against somebody like fucking Duster Dan. Not to, you know, disrespect him, but you, like, Duster Dan is not gonna be on fucking Witness Gaming anytime soon. That's just how it is. But, yeah. It's just really hard for me to give that advice and guarantee that it'll work. It is just impossible. But I will say, if you have this fundamental down, you know what works, why things work, and how this map plays, that's when you start becoming a whole lot more better. Will this necessarily boil into how you should be playing at every single point in time? No. But there's gonna be a point in time when you gotta start innovating instead of just honing. Because at some point, yeah, you can hone, you could be a much better performer at the tasks at hand. But if you don't know what's coming next, you're just gonna be one person just waiting for the next strat to be figured out. You're gonna be left in the dust. And then the blame's on you. I need to start innovating a whole lot more. Not in the way that I play. I can't make the next, like, Mike's Corner. But I can do stuff different, depending on the game set. Or depending on the game state. You guys should follow that. Of course, what works, works, but at one point, does that strategy just become not obsolete, but just countered? That's what I'll leave you guys off with. I'm gonna head out for right now, but yeah, I wish you guys very well.
Tuka, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, Tuka.
Quick question before you go. I know that you are recording this, so I assume that you will put this on your YouTube channel, right there, Tuka?
Mhm.
Nice. Then I can.
I'm gonna
What?
send the link once this is all done. So if
Into
you go,
this server, right?
yeah, like once I'm done, I'm usually just gonna post it. Like if you scroll up on the schedule, you'll see I have
Yeah.
links for most of the videos that I have. If not, some of them are deleted, but it's whatever. They were old
Okay.
videos anyway.
Thank you, there, Tuka.
Yeah, of course. Alright, with that being said, I'm gonna head off. I wish you guys a great Super Bowl weekend.
Oh, I do not
Weekend.
watch American football. Smiley face. Goodbye.
Alright, see ya.